have some wine right now because it's great for making serious videos. Also, goldfish are cheese and crackers. Hey Monica! So today I wanted to talk about journaling. I've been journaling fairly regularly since January of 2011, which was my senior year of high school. Before I even start, I just wanted to say that journaling for me is not this huge grand thing that I think everyone should do. It's hard to say what benefits it's had on my life, and I actually constantly question how beneficial it is for me, but I'll get into that later. Sometimes my journal entries are pages long, but sometimes they're super short. Like this one just reads, Wednesday, October 26, 2011. Bleh. End of entry. So I don't find it particularly meditative or relaxing. I don't write about super deep things. I'm not sure why exactly I felt the need to have this disclaimer, but there it is. So this video comes to you in 4 parts. The first part is about why I started journaling in the first place. So as you probably know, human memory isn't like computer memory. Instead of having a single address for each discrete file like a computer does, each of our memories have elements of them scattered throughout our brain. And when we recall them, we're actually actively reconstructing the experience from all of these different pieces. So the best way to remember something is to recall it over and over again, because then these pathways to the different pieces get stronger. For something as complex as a past experience, this also means the more times you recall it, the more chances you have to reconstruct it in a slightly different way. So the way you remember something later will probably not be the exact same as the way you remember it 2 seconds from when it happened. Hopefully this isn't too far off from what science actually says. Journaling actually solves and suffers from this, because I think I remember things pretty well from the way I wrote them down. What I wrote down was subjective in the first place, for a lot of reasons. For instance, I would often write at night, after I've done a ton of homework, and right before I want to go to sleep. There's also somewhat of an inability to record the everyday interactions with people, or habits I'd have, or attitudes about them. That's because these things happened every day, and there'd be no real reason to think they're significant or want to record them. So when I started journaling, my journals always began with the sentence, "The thing I'm afraid of is forgetting." This is because at some point I realized I have a really bad emotional memory. At some point in high school, I looked back to my old poetry, which I wrote in 7th and 8th grade after I just moved, and I realized a lot of it was really depressed or depressing. But the weird part was I sort of blocked that out from my memory when I thought back to that time. So because I'm somewhat of a pack rat, I'm afraid of losing things that might be meaningful. On Monday, January 31st, 2011, I wrote, "I was thinking about my memories and about journaling, and I came to the conclusion that this journal and my poetry and things like that might be the only way you have to connect to this girl who you aren't anymore. It was a bizarre thought." But the journaling process isn't perfect for preserving things, because I can only write about so much that happened. I can't know right away if something is going to be important, and sometimes I'll want to write about things that I know are trivial in the moment. And part of me is afraid that it's just useless to journal about any of it. On Tuesday, June 21st, 2011, I wrote, "I've lost a lot of the fear that I'll forget things, and a lot of the confidence that this journal will help me to remember." So I started journaling because I was afraid of forgetting. And in January of 2014, this beginning sentence changed to, "The thing I want to do is remember." I want to remember the good things that happened and relive them in a way. And I also want to be able to go back and remember sort of what it was like and learn from my past self. It was somewhat of an acknowledgement that I won't be able to preserve everything, but it was still having some faith that the things that I choose to write about will have some significance in the future, even if they're not the most important things in hindsight. So part 2 is just a glimpse of some of the things that I've written about. Friday, January 14th, 2011, duck-shaped cupcakes. This is the activity on which I spent the last 5 or so hours. In other news, I had a cinnamon bagel today in TOK in English. John Donne called the sun pedantic, which I enjoyed. And in gym, I got into a fight with a ping pong table. I now have a good 3-inch long scratch on my left thigh. It's not deep at all though, so it's alright. I don't know if you know this, Monica, but I'm kind of a nerd. Wednesday, January 26, 2011. I had no exams today, so of course the day was filled with physics and then calculus. It was relaxing. Monday, April 25th, 2011. Today was a good day. In school, the only time I came close to falling asleep was in physics, which is sort of normal. Interesting subject, boring class. And today, my teacher couldn't get over the fact that y sub m equals m times l times lambda divided by d, and y sub 2 equals 2y. Wow. You multiply something by an integer, and it gets multiplied by an integer. I promise I read past 2011, it just wasn't as interesting or funny, I guess. I also noticed that in my journals I had somewhat of an obsession of being productive. I often had a lot of stress over schoolwork. I constantly expressed disappointment in the work that I hadn't done, even though I kept writing about how well I did on tests. On Monday, March 28th, 2011, I wrote, "What I need to do is be constantly striving to be productive. Like Chairman Mao and his short-sighted revolutions, I need to be in a constant state of struggle with a desire to be complacent, indifferent, lazy. A constant struggle to improve myself and the quality and quantity of my work. Although hopefully I won't be as short-sighted as Mao." Yeah, comparing myself to a Chinese communist dictator. So on to part 3, what I've learned from reading through my journals. The first unexpected thing was that it was surprisingly difficult to read through my journals. This could partly be because of the stress that I'm feeling now about my future. I write about a lot of daily stress in my journals, but also about a lot of good things. But for some reason, it's way easier for me to relive the stress than it is to relive the joy. It's also difficult for me rereading it because I want to be close to the people I'm no longer close with. And it's difficult reading through romantic relationships where I know what will go wrong in the future. So apart from it being surprisingly difficult for me, I also learned a few things about myself. I realized I've always had a lot of not great habits, and I've always been frustrated with myself for having them. On Wednesday, February 16th, 2011, I wrote, "Someday I'm going to fix all of my bad habits. Someday I'm going to go to sleep before 10 o'clock. Someday I'm going to brush my teeth and wash my face every night. Someday I'm going to work out more than once every millennium. Someday I'm going to put away my clean clothes and wash my dirty ones in a timely manner. Someday I'm going to work on making my handwriting neat again. Someday I'm going to find the strength to get at and finish all of my schoolwork. Someday I'm going to learn how to study vocabulary for Spanish. Someday I'm going to get up immediately when my alarm goes off. Someday I'll finish reading Hamlet. Right now it's still on my floor staring at me, so I thought I'd include it. Feel better, Hamlet? No, it doesn't. Shame. I'm tired. Didn't know if you could tell that or not." Apart from that, I've learned that I've always felt stressed and unproductive and overwhelmed when it comes to the end of a semester. I've always had imposter syndrome, the inability to internalize my accomplishments, and the persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. And I've always been a procrastinating perfectionist, meaning I have trouble starting an assignment because I know it won't live up to my perfectionist standards. So I found it difficult to be proud of myself and satisfied with the work that I've already done. These things all seem pretty negative. I don't really feel that negative about them. So I guess I'll move on to the fourth part, which is the conclusions I've drawn. They're sort of all related, and they're sort of all in the theme that all of these negative things that I've brought up are really okay. So my first conclusion is that when I start my next journal, I'm going to start with the phrase, "The thing I want to do is reflect." I want to learn how to be okay with journaling as a process, not just as a goal. As I mentioned briefly before, I've always been sort of pessimistic about journaling because I don't know if there's a point to writing any of these things down at all, doubting the idea that it would help me remember anything in any sort of useful way. For me, I like things to be organized and systematic and easily accessible, but guess what? Life and past experiences aren't like that, and journaling isn't going to solve that. So I want to start seeing the journaling process itself as valuable, realizing that this is my time to reflect on the things that have happened that day and that week and that month, which is a valuable thing in itself, even if the physical result of having the journal isn't that valuable. And I want to remind myself that it's okay if I don't remember or keep everything. Some things are valuable because they can't be preserved. The second conclusion I have is that I want to learn how to be okay with change. I don't want to worry about things that I'm probably going to lose. Except I don't even want to think about past experiences and relationships as things to be lost. Sure, I can reminisce about how easy and fun freshman year of college was for me, or about the people I used to be close to, but I don't want to think of them as things that I've lost. I've just changed, and my life has changed, and that's okay. I want to try to be happy with the relationships I have without worrying about how they're going to change in the future. And also, reading back on these journals, I want to try to accept my younger self for who I or she was. I don't want to be embarrassed about decisions or mistakes that I've made or views that I no longer have, because it's the past and it's happened and it's okay the way it was. I've just changed and I've grown. The third thing I've concluded is that I've definitely learned some valuable things about coping with my own perfectionism and other tendencies. So many times when I've journaled, I would ask myself, is it worth it to write this stuff down? And as I was going through all my journals, I was asking myself, was it worth it to read all of these things again? Even as I was writing the script for this video, I was constantly asking myself, is it worth it to make a video about this? And the response I want to develop in myself is, who cares? So what if this video isn't perfect? So what if the things I journal about don't end up being important? The process of it will still teach me something and help me to reflect on things in my life, which is valuable itself and is valuable enough. And I want to learn how to not impose artificial expectations on myself. I want to learn how to be okay with how I spend my time, or who I choose to be friends with, or to be okay with what I'm feeling, and to be okay with the work that I've done. Like I said, the conclusions are all sort of related to each other. So yeah, those are the things I've learned from my own journaling experience. And one more thing I wanted to mention. On Friday, August 26, 2011, I wrote about the first impressions that I had of some people that I met during orientation in freshman year of college. And I wrote, Monica, Caitlin's roommate, really cool. Reminds me of myself. Sort of quirky, interested in music and math. She's easy to talk to, even for me. Hope we have classes together. And I'm really glad it worked out the way it did. So, I hope you found this video interesting, and I would love to hear your thoughts on any of the things I've talked about. I hope you're having a fantastic week, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Saturday, April 9th, 2011. The girls I babysitted were actually really well behaved today. A lot of the time, they watched Curious George and pretended to be cats. Tuesday, February 8th, 2011. Last night, I dreamed I had a hedgehog. He ran into the basement, but I caught him again with some cinnamon. Saturday, August 30th, 2011. Highlights from babysitting. The girls entertained themselves to a great degree with a tape measure. They tied me up with pipe cleaners and wanted me to stay forever. Friday, September 16th, 2011. I think for today I want to try to record a skeleton of every real conversation I have. With Catherine and Monica, Taste You Can See, Psychology of Cereal Commercials, Arts Commercials, Raisin Brahms, and Van Gogurt, Silly Technology and CSI Miami, Good Bacon equals Good Day, Ridiculous Math Homework. June 19th, 2013. For this summer, I apparently recorded on my computer instead of a journal. I said hi to Larry the security guard. I think I made his day by introducing myself. He seemed really happy to see me and remember my name. The security badge for my internship finally worked. Everything in this project is complicated. Files. And more files. Went to Target and Payless and only bought what was on my list. Very proud of myself. On the metro rail, some old southern ladies in wheelchairs were talking. My Indian name is going to be Oh Shit. These are things I thought were worth writing down.